What's up, Bob? Eduardo Talbert here. In today's tutorial, we're making zombie eyes that look like this, or like that. So we're going to make these from scratch. They look pretty realistic if zombies were real, but even if zombies don't exist, you can make some eyes that have like some nasty cataracts and like a dead effect. So that's what we're doing today. Let's get started. For this first step, I'm going to make a mold. Okay, and what we're going to mold is these ball bearings. These are 1 inch. There's links to everything below if you want to replicate this tutorial just like I did. So these are 1 inch ball bearings, and we're going to use that as the base of our mold. The better you prepare, the less work we'll have on the back end in terms of finishing the eyeballs. So these are nice and smooth, so you get a good head start on the shape and texture of your eyeball. So for that, I'm going to take some of this corrugated plastic. It's like corrugated cardboard, but it's plastic. I'm going to make a mold box. So let's get started with that. I'm going to use this tray to make the mold. So I was measuring. Right, for measuring purposes, I want them to be about a 1/2 inch apart, and the mold wall may be about the same distance. So that makes the mold about 2 inches by 3.5. And then 2 more. I'm going to slice through the top of the corrugated area, but not all the way through. That makes it easy to fold like that without going through, so it's still full. It'll make the mold walls just like this. So I'm going to do that here and here. And we're just missing a little piece right there. So first thing I'm going to do is tack this with some hot glue right here. And now I'm just going to run a bead all the way around. This is supposed to seal everything so that your rubber or your silicone doesn't run out the bottom. So make sure it's nice and sealed. Now to seal this too right here, I'm going to put a piece of tape on the inside. Right, and I'm going to run a quick bead on the inside just to make sure that we are sealed everywhere. Alright, so for the next step, now that we have the mold box done and it's solid, I'm going to take some of this all-purpose clay. Just make sure it's sulfur-free. And this is from Aluminite, and it's like an all-purpose clay. It's non-drying. And we're going to put it in the mold box and build a perfectly square rectangular bed where we can put the ball bearings. Do you guys see that? Lack of storage. Alright, let's start with the clay. One thing that helps to get those edges nice and straight is to just cut the clay in a straight line. I'm just putting it in the mold box and then just pushing it down, making sure that the edges seal real well. And I'm filling in the edges with this loose corners. Again, pushing it nice and tight so that the edges are, you don't want to lose all your rubber once you pour it in, so make sure you have a good seal. I'm using this knife just to press against the edge and create a nice even edge all across. So that is perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the two ball bearings and we're going to put them equally spaced right there on the mold. Now I'm going to push them about at least a third of the way. Right, I'm not molding full eyes, full spheres. We're doing like a half eye or a half sphere. So that's what I want to do. So I'm pushing them carefully. There you go. That looks great. Push this one a little bit more. That's awesome. So now we're going to have to pour the rubber. And we're using a relatively new product, and this one is from Alumilite as well, and this is Amazing Mold Maker, and this is like a strong rubber. And it comes like this. It's a two-part. Right, and it's 1-to-1, equal parts. It says by volume. That means that their densities are different, which means that if you did like 5 grams of this and 5 grams of this, you would end up with a different quantity. So it needs to be done by volume. You have 6 to 8 minutes to work this to mix it real well. I'm not too concerned about bubbles, so I'm not going to be degassing or anything. I'm just going to mix it up. It says demold 30 minutes. Right, and then full cure in 24 hours. So demold, it just means that it will be structurally capable of being demolded, but it doesn't mean that it's cured all the way. I like to use the full cure time, and not because I'm that smart, but because I screwed up a few things already. Where it said demold time, I went and demolded, poured some resin in it, and the resin ended up like a goopy mess. And that's because even though it was ready to be demolded, the silicone or the rubber hadn't cured all the way yet. So it's better to give it those 24 hours to be on the safe side. All right, so next step, I'm going to measure the volume to see how much I need to use of this. And then we're going to mix it and pour it. Okay, so the box, I want to be 3/4 of an inch deep by the 2 inches wide and 3.5 length. And that gives us a cubic inches of 5.25. So 5.25 in cubic centimeters is 86 cubic centimeters. That's quite a bit. So that's 86 cc's, which means we need 43 of this and 43 of this. So let's measure. One of these is 30 milliliters or 30 cc's. So if I do 1.5, it's 45 cc's, which is pretty close to 43 cc's. So I'm going to do 1.5 of part B, 1.5 of part A, and that way we got them by volume. If it was by weight, it would be so much easier with the scale, but it is what it is. Let's do it. 30 cc's plus 15 more. There's that coolest color. Check that out. It's so bright. Remember, this has a work time of like 6 to 8 minutes. So we're going to mix this up with a stir stick and pour it into the mold. We're going to mix this until the colors are perfectly even. Should scrape the sides and the stir stick. That looks good. Now I'm going to pour this into the mold. Just down the side. That looks perfect. Now, like I said, this says 30-minute demold, but I'm just going to wait till tomorrow. So I'll see you in a flash. That's a flash. All right, let's demold this. Now this is solid, which is good. A good cure, it seems. So let's start taking this off. All right, let's peel off the clay. See that? So now, pop right out and we have the perfect mold for the eyes. And this nice rubbery is a good mold actually. For this next step, we're going to pour the eye forms in, and I'm going to use the Alumilite white resin, equal parts, so about half and half. So it's the volume of like one inch sphere. I'll calculate that quickly. So the volume is 8.2 cc's. So let's do 10 cc's, which means 5 and 5. I'm going to do 5 grams of one, 5 grams of the other one, but keep in mind that this thing kicks in and in 5 minutes is solid. So you need to like mix the two pieces, stir it real good, and dump it in the mold. So let's do that. We'll do 5 grams and 5 grams. So 5.4. So let's try to match that. That's heating up already, so this is solid, so let's pop these out. Perfect. Oh, that's awesome. So we have our eye forms out of white resin. Right, save that mold. You can make 1,000 eyes if you need. The next step here is I'm going to grind the top. As you can see, it's rounded. To grind it flat so we can place an iris on top of that. That's just water. And now take this end and keep on grinding. And you see the flat spot? So we're going to make it as big as an iris. Can you see that? Let me zoom in. Let's get the light right. See the flat spot? It's perfect. So do the same with this one. These guys are nice and flat. Got the round area to put the iris on, and the measurement of the iris that I checked is about 13 millimeters. Okay, so I also have some black and white cutouts, some colorful cutouts, and some leftovers from the past. I'm gonna pick 2 of these, and we're going to glue them on there. I'm gonna pick this one right here. I like it, and we can give it whatever color we want. By the way, the file for this irises is linked below, and you can print it in black and white or color. This one I'm using the black and white because I'm going to color them myself. All right, let's cut these out and set them aside. There's one and the other one. I'm going to glue them using Mod Podge because that works really well to glue them, but also it encapsulates the whole paper with with the Mod Podge so that the resin doesn't seep into it and discolor it. But first, let me paint these. I'm gonna go find a highlighter, maybe a blue highlighter. All right, we have 2 blue irises. Now with the Mod Podge, I'm just going to take a cotton swab and then putting some Mod Podge there. Then we can put the iris on top, as centered as you can. The pupil to be right in the middle. Then once you have it glued down like that, then cover it with more Mod Podge. The Mod Podge will dry clear, so you won't lose a lot of this detail, although it looks like you are, but you won't. These are almost dry, so in the meantime I'm taking a piece of wood like this and I cut 2 pieces, and that's just to make 2 handles. So I'm going to hot glue them here temporarily, and that will help us hold the eyes while we paint them and do other things. Now, one thing that I like to do on these, if they were going to be transparent, is I would take my drill and drill a hole where the pupil is, and then I would fill the pupil with some black nail polish. This is cheap nail polish from the dollar store. Now, since these are like zombie eyes and they're going to have some sort of like milky cataracts on top, I'm not going to drill the top. Okay, so let's get started with the veins. For that, I'm going to use some yarn. I have some yarn here, just any red yarn will do. I like this color, and a tiny little piece like that is more than you need. And the trick for this is just to start pulling the little fibers out and just drop them right there. Big chunks, little chunks, it's up to you. I'm taking a little index card, and we're going to use that with some of this if I made epoxy. This will work real well with this as well. This is again a 1-to-1, so just put a little glob right there. That's 5 minutes, so I'm going to do one eye at a time. I'm going to mix just enough for one eye, and then we can take care of the other eye. I'm going to use a toothpick to mix it up. And I have one of these disposable brushes. This is from Harbor Freight, but you can find them almost anywhere. And we're going to just paint the epoxy down the sides like this. Then we're going to take the yarn and just lay it on top. Just have it lay down, and it will make the most realistic veins once we're done, and you'll see. Over here, and when you put big pieces like this, it'll look like really irritated eye. Just have them sit, and you can redirect them like that. See that irritation? Pretty cool. And we can cut the excess off later. That looks fantastic. Set that aside and start with eye number 2. Right, these guys are good to go. Let that epoxy dry all the way. It's a new day. I let these things dry overnight. They didn't need to dry overnight because it's 5-minute epoxy, but I ran out of time. So here we are today. Now that looks pretty cool, as you can see, but it's bright white. We need to make this look a little more natural, and in our case, pretty like dead and diseased. So let's do that now. For that, you can use alcohol inks. You can use airbrush paint, or to be on the cheap, just regular food coloring. This is alcohol based. So, and alcohol. So I have my little tray here. I'm going to put some alcohol in a few of them and try to make a stain. We're not going to paint anything, we're just going to stain. Let's put a drop of red here, drop of green. That's a big drop. And even yellow. I think I'm going to start with a little bit of yellow, just to give it a not so white tint. And the way we do this is, let's put another drop of alcohol here. It's just regular rubbing alcohol. And I'm going to just take some of this yellow, just mix it in. See how it turns yellow? It's like a stain. And this will make this eyes not look so bright white. That's a good base. And we apply it with a Q-tip, and all we do is dab the color in. Okay, and it's not very obvious, but it's going to start building up the color. If it's too light, you can add more yellow. And as you can see the little hints of yellow. This is just to make it more natural looking, more organic. And you can use your finger to dab it if it's too much. And as you can see, it starts taking a tint that is more natural. I'm not too worried about the yellow because we're going to go pretty diseased with like a brown color next, with some bruises of the cornea and everything else. Now for the bruises, we're going to use this is going to be a little bit more intense. A drop of alcohol here, more than a drop. A little bit of this green, a little bit of red. Alright, that looks pretty nasty brown. See, it's still too green, so a little bit more red. Just keep playing with it, trying to get like a mostly red type of brown. Looks like a bruised, dried blood look. That's better. A little more red. Maybe we can put some of this in this red. See what that looks like. Ah, look at that. That looks nasty. See that color? That's perfect. Let me just squeeze this. Now for the bruises, I'm just going to touch the areas that you want to be bruised. Right? I'm going all the way into the iris. See that? So let's make a bruise right here where all these veins are. And you can also add a little bit of green if you want to make it a little nastier. See? So there's the eye getting all bruised. Get a bruise right here, very light. And the yarn will catch. I need to focus this a little bit better. The yarn will catch the color, then you can like smooth it. See how nasty that looks? That bruise looks awesome. Just in general, go around. More yellow if you want on the parts that are just too white. Like that. A bit there. It's all this dark red here on these veins. They'll complement all those veins that we put there. That's looking good. This spot here is too red. Too white. Brilliant. Let's put a very dark bruise somewhere like here. Just touch it with a little bit of green here on the side, just for nastiness. See that? It's all rotten over here. A little nasty green here on the edge, maybe. And just little, see that rotten look, and you can dissolve it, mix it. It's up to you. So that eye looks terrible. So this part over here is just a little too white, so let's add a little bit of yellow right here just to smooth it out. Like that bruise there. Oh, that's nasty. Compare those two. And it'll look even better once we cover it with resin. Alright, let's do the same over here. I like to hide all the white because I assume that this thing is pretty sick and dead, right? Or undead. Right, this will almost dry instantly. I'm going to give it a few minutes. And then we go to the next step, which is, I think I figured out the secret for the milky, cloudy cornea, kind of like a cataracts that you see on like almost zombie makeup and everything. So we're going to do that next. Right, for the cornea, for the milky cornea, we're going to use, I haven't found any other product, but this is transparent white airbrush paint from Jacquard, or whatever you pronounce it, and this does a great job. I'm sure there are other ways to do it, but there's alcohol based, which makes it really easy, and we need like less than a drop. This is like tiny. This will cloud up your eyes so much. So I'm going to put a tiny drop here, All right, put a whole drop, but I'm not going to use it all. You guys see it? There's a drop there, I promise. Right, we're not going to use the whole thing. And we're going to use again the 2-part 5-minute epoxy. Okay, I'm going to do 2 distinctive piles, one for each eye, one here of part A, and one here, part B. We're going to mix them one at a time, so that leave that one not mixed while we mix this one, so it doesn't cure while we're painting the other one. So mix it real well like we did the other one. You don't need a lot. This is more than enough. I'm gonna have some left over. And then very carefully, and this part is tricky, grab a tiny little bit of the white. See that? Barely, and then put a drop there, maybe another teeny drop. I'm gonna mix it, and it's going to make this milky white resin. Then the easiest thing to do is to take the eye off the clamp. We're going to take this resin and just pile it right on top. See that? Right, and then to smooth it out, I'm just going to put the toothpick there and then rotate the eye so that we get some sort of like tapering. It does run a little bit over the thing, and that is fine, because I mean, when a cornea gets milky, it gets milky all over. I just want it to be kind of even. And now this is where the trick, where you need to put this perfectly level back on the clamp and let it cure happily and undisturbed and level. Okay, so that is one eye. I'm going to do the same to this one. So let's flip this and let's mix this. Put my finger in the... Okay, all right, so mix this real good. All right, let's let these guys cure all the way. This is cured. So in the next step, we're going to encapsulate all the finishing work you did in clear resin, okay? So we're gonna do that next, but extremely important with resin is gloves, respirator. I'll be wearing that, plus my studio is well ventilated. So I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do. We're going to reuse the mold that we made. We're going to make about 1 gram of clear resin, 1 gram of each, so 2 grams total. And we're using this. This is a new product, actually, relatively new, a few months old. It's called Quick Epoxy Coat, and it's designed for thinner coats, and it has like a really quick demold, 4 to 5 hours. Full cure, 3 to 5 days. Now we won't need to do that 3 to 5 days. I'm gonna let it do about maybe 6 to 8 hours to get that that coat. And that clear resin will encapsulate the eyeball and all the veins and the whatever you call this thing, the cataract and all that stuff. So let's get with that. I hope you can hear me. Well, I took some of this stuff and moved it into these guys because it's so much easier to measure with that tip. Okay, so like I said, we're doing 1 gram of each. We're going to mix it real well, and then we're going to pour some in the mold, and we're also going to coat these with it, so in order to avoid some bubbles. And then we're going to insert these in the mold with the clear resin and let it cure. That should give us a nice encapsulation of your finish. Right, let's mix this real well. Scrape the sides, scrape the stir stick. We don't need a lot right now because this is just making a thin layer over the whole eyeball. Now, first thing I'm going to do, I'll take the eye, a little bit of resin, and let's get it all over. This is trying to avoid any big bubbles from getting trapped. Alright, this one is done. Put it here for a second. And let's do this one. Alright, that looks good. So now we're going to divide this resin equally between this guy, this guy. Alright, and I'm going to just paint it up a little bit around just to give it a thin coating on the inside of the mold. And that's more than enough resin. Now the trick here to avoid bubbles is to insert this, the eye, sideways, right? So that all the bubbles come out until you see it come right there, and turn it. There. Let's do the same here with this one. Put it in, push it, there you go, no bubbles. Let's give it a good wiggle. Good wiggle there. I'm going to set it and forget it, don't mess with it. I'll be back in about 6 to 8 hours to unmold these, and we should be almost done. Alright, it's another day. That is cured all the way. So I'm going to pull these out, it's the moment of truth, and see what they look like. Oh, that's nice. That is a very creepy eye right there. Now this is what I mean about the prep work. See how smooth that is? Because we started with the ball bearing. That makes the finish work much better. And here's the other one. There are the zombie eyes. They look quite nasty, nice and shiny. Now that's what they look like, right? But you have many options. If you want to do it like more human, then maybe a little milder treatment there. That was just yellow with yarn. And I have my model here, my eye model. Her face peels off somewhere. See? Pretty creepy. So let's have her model the eyes and see what they look like. Remember, these are supposed to be zombie eyes. I'm gonna try these guys first. Those are the mild zombie eyes. I think they look awesome. They might look better on something that is dead and that look like it's alive, but good. There's the creepiest part, isn't it? So cool. Alright, give me your eyes. I don't have a name for my eye model. Maybe you guys can help me out with that. Alright, let's try these guys. Now one thing I gotta do is, as you can see, there's still some yarn here. We can trim that off now. And then your eyes will be perfectly clean. And after you install them, you can also glaze them if you want. With the 5-minute epoxy to give it a one last minute shininess and wetness. Right, and let's peel this off. Nice. Now, let's get our eye model here. Put your hair back, please. Making a mess. Let's put one eye right there. And another one right there. And there are the diseased and injured eyes. I think that looks awesome. And I think they're going to look awesome on my zombie too, which I'll show you in a second. So in the next video, we're going to take those eyes and we're going to install them in my zombie. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I thought these guys turned out pretty cool. So if you like this and more stuff like it, consider subscribing. Give it a like if you think this is cool, or share it with your friends, and I'll see you on the next time. I'm Eduardo Talbert. This is Monster Tutorials. You, me, we're all the prop mob. See ya.